Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Big Time Adulting Podcast. I'm about to pee my pants with excitement in letting you know who my fucking guest is here today. The one and only Chelsea Handler. I honestly can't even believe that I'm saying this out loud right now, but Chelsea, welcome to the Big Time Adulting Podcast.
Oh my God. Thank you for having me. And good morning.
And I just had to tell Chelsea that my real name is Caitlin and not Big Time Adulting, although you can call me whatever you
I'll
want.
probably just stick to big time adulting. It's very mellifluous. It flows right off the tongue.
You think so? It's like
Yeah.
I guess I could have put some alliteration in there, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm sticking with it. So Chelsea, everybody will obviously already know who you are, but you're an author of 6 books. New York Times bestselling author, starred in numerous TV shows, have comedy specials. You're currently touring for your Little Big Bitch tour, likely coming to a city near whoever's fucking listening right now. So buy your tickets because you're about to announce some more tour dates tomorrow, right?
I am. Yes. It's called Little Big Bitch Tour, and you can get tickets at chelseahandler.com. I'm announcing, I don't know when this airs, but yes, I'm announcing about 40 more cities.
I'll send it out tomorrow after you announce it on my page and advertise it for you.
Oh, thank you.
So I've been a fan of you for a really long time, since right after college when your book, Are You There Vodka, It's Me, Chelsea came out. And my roommate, who's my best friend, introduced me to the book. I read it then and I was like, I feel so simpatico with you because we were pretty avid vodka drinkers as well. Um, do you feel like you just do you come in contact with a lot of women that you just end up feeling simpatico with just because of who you are and the way that you are? Like, do you attract a lot of that? I feel like you
I
just
definitely meet a lot of people that are I think there are two frames to it. Like people who are fans of mine who feel like they relate to what I said. So like you're reaching an audience of people that are simpatico and like when I wrote my first book, let me start there. Like it was called My Horizontal Life, a collection of one night stands. And it was very hard to get published because people thought it was so crude or, like a woman talking about sleeping around, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting that published. And the reaction from that alone made me realize how not unusual I am,
yeah.
how many more women are just like me and have experienced the same thing. I mean, that's kind of what your 20s are about, is screwing around, meeting different guys, blowing men off, getting blown off, all of that. So as I've moved forward and written more books, yes, I always am I guess surprised about how many people it speaks to, anything I talk about. And I think this is true for everyone. I'm sure you've realized this as well. When you're speaking from the truth of your own experience, it lands with a very large swath of people that feel exactly the same way you do. You're talking about how difficult it is to be a parent. I'm talking about the benefits of never having children. And we're both speaking to a very big audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally relate to what you're saying in that way, especially as to like saying something that's a little bit maybe like taboo to some people, but then being like, wow, I feel really fucking validated because all of these people are feeling the same way as me. And I think that you were actually one of the first women to write about stuff like that. And it was kind of like groundbreaking at that time. When was that book? Like 2004 or two?
I have no idea. I have no sense of
Anyway,
time. I
okay.
mean, I don't know if it's Monday or Friday today. So
Actually, me neither. So I have like a couple just nosy, stupid, fucking mundane questions about you. Like, do you cook?
not well.
You like on your shows you would have dinner parties a lot, but so
Yeah,
that
they
was
were
being
be
cooked by somebody.
yeah, no, no, no. I would never be able to cook for a dinner party. Like
Do
there
you
are a
have like
couple.
a dish, like a special?
Yeah, egg whites. I can scramble some egg
Yeah,
whites in the morning and put some like spinach and,
right out of the carton.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, right out of the
Yeah.
carton. I don't have to separate the eggs. But if I had to separate the eggs, I could also do that. I've done that before. But yeah, I have the carton. I'll put spinach. I douse everything in Parmesan just because I don't have time to really figure out a recipe. So that usually
Yeah.
works. And what else can I cook? I mean, I think that might be it.
Pasta,
Oh,
probably.
I can bake a chicken. My friend, not a full chicken, but a chicken breast. My friend gave me a recipe when I was in Whistler during like COVID, and you couldn't go out. Like I was quarantining
Oh,
for 2 weeks.
yeah, that's a
She gave me a
conundrum.
chicken recipe, a breast of chicken, and you put it in at 420 for 23 minutes at 420 degrees, and it will be crispy and nice on the
Ooh.
outside, and then juicy on the inside. And that recipe I can cook, and every time it's delicious.
How many days in a row did you eat that after you figured that out during
I think
COVID?
like 3, and then I just was like, "I can just skip dinner after this." I mean, I don't really care about food in the way that I used to when I was younger. I used to have like this crazy, like the only time I really go off on food is if I'm stoned and I haven't had a talk with myself about controlling myself.
Have you exercised today, by the way? I see you doing some of your workouts on Instagram. You're badass, like doing 50-pound kettlebell split
Oh yeah,
squats.
that's with my
Like,
trainer, the Dynamo, Ben Bruno. No, I haven't exercised today because this weekend I did 8 shows in Irvine at the Improv because I'm ready to launch my new tour, as you
yeah,
mentioned. So I did 9 shows last week at in Nashville in
yeah,
5 days, and then this week I did 8 shows. So I am wrecked. And
yeah.
I told Ben Bruno this morning I'll let him know if I feel like working out today, but it doesn't look optimistic.
I mean, I'm lucky that you're not taking a nap right now and that you're here with me. Thank you
Oh,
for
I'm going to go to bed
foregoing
at
that.
around 6 p.m. tonight, so don't you worry.
Okay. So, another stupid question. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Okay, that's a good one. And then this is just a random one because I loathe making lunches for my kids for school.
Oh,
Do you remember having like a favorite lunch as a kid for a go-to school
are you
lunch?
fucking kidding me? My parents were the worst. I was the youngest of 6 children. So, at lunch, my dad would hand me like a $20 bill and be like, "Here." I'm like, "First of all, they don't break 20s at the cafeteria, Dad. I'm in first grade." And then when they did make lunch, it was like embarrassing because there were no, it was like cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. I'm like, "Dad, it's
Gross.
peanut butter and jelly, not cream cheese and jelly. No one's eating that." And don't, and then my mom would, I remember one day and I didn't even have, everyone had lunch boxes that were in style, like Miss Pac-Man or Cubert or whatever the hell was going on at that time, Barbies. And then I remember my parents, never had any of that stuff for me. Everything I had was hand-me-downs from my brothers and sisters. Um, and I remember my mom put an egg in my lunch once, or whomever did it, but it wasn't, I went to go thinking it was a hard boiled and it was raw. So
Stop
that
it.
was, yeah. So that was the kind of parenting. My parents were not big time adulting. They were not adulting.
I was speaking of your parents, I did want to ask you about your mom because I know that she passed from a long battle with breast cancer, and that was like the same year that your show started, the Chelsea
Yeah.
Handler show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And like my son had leukemia, and I was, doing my online stuff, like being funny during that time. And I was kind of just wondering from your perspective, like as you're rising to fame and getting a show and a special, what was that like for you to have to like be funny during that really sad time of your life?
It was interesting. It was kind of just like there was an ending happening and a beginning happening. And my mom had been suffering for so long that for
Yeah.
me, her passing finally was a relief. It was just like I wanted her to be out of pain. She was
Mhm.
just deteriorating for such a long period of time. And I had moved to California. So my life was beginning in so many ways. I mean, I had lived here for a while, but like my professional life was finally starting to take off. I had gotten a new TV show, which was going to be my own TV show. I'd been doing stand up for I don't know, probably 10 years at that point. And I was falling in love at the same time. So I had all these beginnings happening as my mom passed away. So it was kind of like a very bittersweet time. I
Mm.
wasn't overly emotionally attached to her going, like I was accepting of it.
Mhm.
Whereas I remember looking at my sisters and thinking, oh, they're not going to be okay for a while because they still lived in New Jersey. They had little children that my mom would spend time with. And I was just in a different spot in my life and a different place in my life. But I will say that was a really beautiful time because of the beginnings of it, and what the possibilities were endless, and it was a comfort to be falling in love with someone and all of those things. And I would say that my relationship with my mom is definitely intensified after her death. There's so much, kind of mysticism, and in the moments where I feel like I need her and then I feel her, or in the moments where I feel kind of like a reassuring pat on my shoulder, or even when I'm skiing and I can be dangerous and take a lot of risks and be, too adventurous, some might say. And even in those moments, I can feel my mom being like, slow down, take it easy, be careful. So I'm very attuned to that, only because I've talked to so many people who specialize in, like, really, like, meditation and spirituality, and that stuff has brought me to a much better place with her,
Hmm.
in terms of, like, I almost feel closer to my mom now that she's gone than I did when she was here.
That's amazing. That's so awesome to feel that like strength of her presence with you so much. That's like
Yeah.
what a gift.
I know,
Um,
it's a real gift, and I think the more you believe in that stuff, the more you see.
yeah.
So, like, kind of being narrow-minded about spirituality or mysticism or energy and, like, all of that stuff, the more you miss if you don't believe it. If you think it's nonsense, then it is nonsense. If you believe it, it becomes real. So it's kind of a very powerful way to have, a like, that kind of mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that about what you just said about your mom. I also, by the way, needed to let you know that you were the talk of the town at my Easter family brunch yesterday. My husband's uncles were like, Chelsea Handler, you're talking to Chelsea Handler tomorrow. What time can I call in? Uncle Peter was like, what time can I call in? I was like, well, Peter, it's like not a phone call. It's a computer thing. And he's like, well, I love your blog. And I was like, Instagram account, that's fine. Anyway, and then my husband's uncle Maddie was like, that she's a great skier. Jesus. She down in the bikini, very tasteful. She wasn't naked. But you are a ripper on the mountain.
Oh, well, I've worked thank you, thank you. I've worked very hard. Skiing is something I'm very passionate about, so I had to work very hard and very long to become good at it. When
Did you
I was,
grow
like,
up a skier, like as
a
a
little
kid?
bit. We skied growing up, but not like what I'm doing now. But I remember I tore my ACL in Zermatt, Switzerland, like probably 10 years ago. And after that,
Mm,
somebody said, like, oh, you're not nearly as fearless as you were before. One of my ski guides that I was skiing with in Whistler, he goes, oh, I could tell you hurt yourself because you're a little bit more timid. And I was like,
yeah.
what? You'd be like, fuck off. Like, I didn't have to hear that twice. So then I really focused. And then with COVID, I was lucky enough to be able to go spend like 3 or 4 months in Canada for like 2 winters in a row. And all I did was work with a ski guide and get my technique down, because
Wow.
I think, some of us are much more interested in learning when we're older than when we are in school. So that's definitely me. And yes, I've worked very hard to become a good skier. And now I can say that I am one.
And you were just skiing with Lindsey Vaughn.
Yes, I
That's
know.
ridiculous. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I have a question because this is one of the things that like I love about you so much is that you're really like forthcoming forward with everything that you believe in and unapologetic about that, which I think is kind of what you were saying about your book earlier and what sort of like how I talk about motherhood and stuff. It can be hard to be very outspoken that way as a woman still this day and age, and I wonder, like, do you ever feel like you're overcoming anything to be out there the way that you are, or do you just truly just give no fucks?
No, I mean, I care, but I believe that I know what to care about, right? Like, you can't spend your time worrying about making people like you. That's not natural, and that's not the way to get people to like you, by trying that hard. It's like
Mm,
demanding respect. If you
mm,
demand that's not how you get respect. You get respect by displaying respect,
hmm.
showing respect, demonstrating respect. So I think, I mean, everyone always asks me, like, oh, how do you do this? You don't care. Of course I care. I
Yeah.
just don't let that be my driving force or my impetus. My motivation is doing the right thing, what I think is right, and defending the people that I think that need, an ally or a big loud voice. And I've always been that way. So it's very natural, and it doesn't feel risky for me to, like, stick my neck out. Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of backlash my whole career, so I'm very used to it. It doesn't
Hmm.
really, I mean, when you look where it's coming from, that's also helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like agree or disagree, it's super respectable. Just who you are is who you are, and you're proud and loud about it. And I fucking love that about you.
Well,
And
I
I,
think that's thank you. And I just wanted that I wanted to re-pivot that back to my mom. I grew up like I had this conversation recently with one of my girlfriends. Our moms didn't get to live these lives. They sacrificed and gave up their dreams to become mothers. And when I grew up, your mother wasn't a career woman necessarily. When my mom worked, it was because my dad was broke. It wasn't because she wanted to or she was realizing her dreams. She had 6 children, and so like she sacrificed so much for me. And so when I live out loud in the way that I do, I'm always thinking of my mom. I'm always thinking of like, look what you were able to create, even though you didn't get to have that. Look, you have 3 daughters who are loud and proud, who are living their best lives and doing what they want without being apologetic for it, and not so it was kind of an example of what I didn't want my life to be, and not as
Mhm.
an insult to my mother, but as an acknowledgement to everything that she probably didn't get to do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I personally feel like I overcome that feeling on a day-to-day basis with kind of putting aside guilt for like putting my kids aside and trying to pursue things that I'm doing and passionate about still now today, and so I think that's so nice that you are like paying homage to all the like blood, sweat, and tears that your mom put in for you to be exactly who you are and do your fucking thing.
Yeah,
um
well, I think for a while, I looked at my mom and I looked at her and I was like, I don't want to be like that. And that
mm,
was almost, sad because you're like, oh, I remember my dad having like she didn't have her name on the deeds to the house, and I would be like, Mom, what the fuck? Like, what if you guys get divorced? You have no rights, you have no this and my mom would be like, oh my God, Chelsea, you're so, we're not getting divorced. And I'd be like, I know, but you have no agency. And I was always so frustrated with her. Instead of respecting her choices, I was kind of like, I wanted to get as far away from them as possible. And it's only with age and maturity that I realized, oh, she was doing, not necessarily the best that you can, because I don't buy that shit. Not everybody. I hate when people are like, oh, they're doing the best that they can. It's like, this person could be doing a little fucking better.
I mean, she
Okay.
did send you to school with a fucking raw egg, so
Yeah, right. So she wasn't doing the best. She could have hard boiled that egg. But I think when you get older and you like get more mature and you realize, okay, that so now I have more of like I'm not angry at her. I'm like, I love her, and I'm like, okay, I'll break that cycle of being beholden to anyone. That was very important for me to never be dependent on another person.
yeah. And you certainly don't need to be. And I feel like you also, like, as I was asking you the question about, do you have any insecurities about the way that are very outspoken, that sort of thing. I can also tell, like, at the same time, being a follower of yours and a fan of yours, that you do really care and have like a giant heart because you're so thoughtful about people. And I mean, like, you took your half of your family in during COVID and like let your nieces and nephews lie all over all your furniture. And like you're very family oriented, and you clearly have just a gigantic heart.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think most people are family oriented.
I
I mean,
guess.
maybe not ISIS, but like everybody else seems to be family oriented. And my family's big and we're close because my mom passed away, my dad has passed away, we had a brother that passed away, so we're a
Yeah.
very tight unit. Um, and we've always been a close family. So that's they moved in with me for COVID, and then I promptly put my house on the market to send a direct message to all family members that just because I have 5 extra bedrooms doesn't mean I want any company. There's love,
But
and there's
they
also
came
get the
anyway.
fuck out of here already. You've been here for 3 months.
I feel like I've listened to you now on a couple of podcasts that you've been on recently, with Alexander Cooper and then also with Glennon, and just like there's a super, a strong juxtaposition in like, not, you are who you are, but just like what I respected about is that you set certain boundaries for the conversations that you're willing to have with who you choose to have those conversations with. Like at this point in your life, like you're an open book. Like I'll tell you whatever you want if you're the person who I choose to tell. Like, is that something
Yeah.
that you had to learn in your business, or just you come by that naturally?
No, I mean, I've always been an open book, and I think that's probably what my fans expect from me because that's how I've kind of had that's my currency.
Hmm.
My whole thing is
Yeah.
oversharing, whether it's, whether it's having a bunch of one night stands or whether it's going to therapy or whether it's my brother dying or,
Yeah.
all of the stuff or whether I'm into, so positive about cannabis and mushrooms and that stuff. Um, that's just been my the way I've made a living is by being myself. And so I always stick true to that. There are a lot of people that hold a lot more privacy. They value their privacy. They don't want their children in the public. And I get that too, but that's just not my thing. My thing is to overshare and be honest about it because also, I think you always have to remember how many people again you're speaking to, how many people you can be helping without even knowing just by telling your truth.
Yeah. Has that shocked you along the way how many people you've helped that way?
Oh yeah, I mean always. It's always shocking. I mean with my podcast and the Glennon Doyle podcast you mentioned. I mean I had 42,000 new DMs after that episode came out of
Wow.
women. I mean I couldn't even get through them
No.
obviously. Just ridiculous. I was like, "Oh my god, when I saw that number, it was just crazy about how many women related to, breaking up and also elevating the conversation, maturing beyond what the way I would have acted during a breakup 5 years ago or 10 years ago and understanding like it's just a breakup. We all survive it and it's okay. And it's nice to do it with grace because there's no worse feeling than looking back at your breakups with friends or with boyfriends and regretting your immature, nasty name
Hmm.
calling or, whatever the behavior was, not being proud of yourself is an icky feeling. So it's so nice to go into something that's very difficult that you don't want to do and handle yourself with dignity and grace and handle the other person in the same way. And then look back at that time and be like, oh, this is so valuable for me. And then to realize how many women had, that resonated with was very meaningful and also helped the breakup, like it helped me heal.
Yeah. And then, but I feel like sometimes, kind of going back to what I was saying originally, like what you were willing to share with one host versus another host or whatever, like I don't necessarily feel like I want to share. I'm an oversharer as well, chronically, but I just feel like there's parts of me that I'm not willing to share with just anyone all of the time, like I'll answer most questions openly, but I'm willing to kind of dive deeper with someone who's kind of maybe knows the same type of pain or like who's a little bit more on my similar wavelength in life. I don't
Yeah, no,
know.
I hear what you're saying. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like, I mean, I don't choose it, you know, I don't choose, I'm not that picky about who I'm talking to per se. I have more of a tenet of be forward, be honest, be open, like it's just my vibe.
Yeah.
So it's more of the latter than, what you're suggesting, which is where I'm like curating these conversations. I'm not, they're both friends of mine. So of course I was going to do their podcast. It's like me talking to you, I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, sure. Let me do this because you asked. And I think it's good with, a lot of people ask me for stuff on Instagram and it's nice when you can do something for a stranger, or say, yeah, let me do that. That's fun. And that's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Well,
a,
I mean, I was going to get to this later, but like, honestly, I can't even tell you how touching that is that you said yes to coming on my podcast because I DM'd you on a fucking whim. Like, she'll probably never even see this. You have 5 million followers. It's really hard to even like see a DM come through at that point. And then you were like, I would love to hit me up in April when I have some time. And I did. And then you were like, how about Monday? And I was like, yes, like I'll meet you on the moon for this podcast if that's when it works for you. But like that was just such a stand up thing for you to do. And you just, I've seen like you're so busy, like you said, you've been doing shows out the ass, and you're just were away, and now you're back and getting ready to do more shows. And just for you to, you give a lot of yourself. That's like wonderful of you. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you agreed to come on here. It's really like you opened a door for me. This is a big step for me. You're the first celebrity person that I've interviewed on my podcast before, and it feels a huge day for me.
Oh, I love that. See,
Oh,
it's all worth it. It's so sweet. I'm so happy.
yeah, you're the best. I honestly
Oh.
am just on cloud nine today. And
Oh.
I was like thinking of all the other questions that I mean your posts about like the joys of like not having children basically is are so spot on, and they're so hilarious, and frankly they're porn for moms. So it's just like, say it again, tell me more. But like, you are an aunt, you have a lot of nieces and nephews, and your sisters have kids, and I just I kind of wonder, like, from all the shit that you see out there with different parenting styles, and it's like you keep up with mom, like you follow me for some reason, and like also scary mommy and stuff, like, so you kind of know what's going on in that mom world. Like, what advice would you give
To
to
mothers?
moms? Yeah.
No, I do see a lot of parenting because I mean, obviously, most of my friends have kids. I have
Right.
a bunch of friends that are single or don't have children and aren't single. But yeah, most of my friends do have kids, so I do see across the board parenting. And I think I'm not going to give hot parenting tips, but I would
Maybe you
say
should
that you could.
start that.
I know. I was at one point I was going to write a book called Hot Parenting Tips, like a coffee table book about what I want to see in children because obviously when you just don't want children to be assholes, right? You don't want people
Yes.
crying, throwing tantrums, throwing themselves on the floor. You don't want to be on a plane listening to somebody scream. I mean, babies screaming is one thing, but toddlers and children screaming is quite another. Or at a restaurant, the decibel is too much. But I really do appreciate when I see cool parents and parents that aren't like over parenting and that are letting children breathe and be who they are and understanding the relationship that you don't own your child. You know what I mean? Your child is not your property. Your
Mm,
child is an extension of you and you're here to guide them through the world in whatever way you can. And obviously, from your experience with your son having leukemia, it's like that is the worst fear of any parent to not be able to protect your child, right?
yep.
And your job is solely to protect them and instruct them and guide them, but not to indoctrinate or make them something that you are. And I find that to be, when you see kids that are cool and that have their own line of thinking and that are respectful and that can engage with adults. If you can engage with me as a 6 or 7 year old, I'm down and I'm interested
Yeah.
because I have something to learn from you. I know that. But when kids are just shitty and bratty and throw, like I have a friend whose kid throws her iPad in her mother's face, and I'm like, oh my God, that is so ridiculous. You know what I
I
mean? You have
know.
weaponized this, like, media. And I know parents are up against this. Like, if I had kids, they'd be on fucking iPads all day. But, that's what you have to think about when you're having a kid and you're bringing them into the world. Like, what kind of parent am I going to be? Am I going to be a half ass parent or am I going to be like 150% parent? Because I don't think you have the right to do it unless you're 150% in.
Yeah, and then so much of what you're saying is so true about like knowing that you don't like own your child, and they have their own life and path and all of that, and coming to terms with that as a mother, especially. I feel like moms as like more primary caretaker roles of like doing so much and becoming martyrs in a lot of way to their families and to their children, and then realizing one day these kids are on their own path, they're leaving, they're going, and I have to still, like, I have to, now who am I, right? Like,
Mm.
still maintaining your identity. So
Yeah, well, right. That too, because there's nothing less attractive than somebody who has a baby and all they do is talk about the baby. It's like, okay,
so fucking
like
boring.
It is. I mean, I've had friends that I'm like, I can't be friends with you anymore if you're going to be like this, okay? Because I'm not interested. Like, yeah, I can look at your cute baby, but like, I'm not that interested. I don't want to hear about that 24 hours a day. And so, yeah, that's kind of annoying when people are like consumed by parenting too, because that is a loss of identity, right?
Yeah, and also just like it's you think that you have to do everything and be everything and make this child fit to a certain way in life, and that it's all a reflection of you, and just kind of being able to extricate your ego from parenting. That's one of the
Mm.
hardest parts, like leaving your ego aside with
I
everything in life though, too.
Yeah, no, ego is a big problem for most things. I remember when it was so funny. My sister was with me, my sister Simone, and her three kids were with me during COVID. And I was just stoned all day long. Like there was nothing going on at our house. It was like, get up, do a puzzle, read a book, and to get in the pool. Like there was nothing happening. But it was really pleasant and enjoyable because I didn't have any work to be doing. I was just hanging out, reading books and, being stoned. And I remember my niece upstairs with me, she was talking to me about something, and I just remember feeling so judged by her. And I was like,
How
wait,
old
does
is
she think
she?
I'm like, she's like 20, she was 22 at the time. And I
Okay.
was like, does she think I'm just some rich bitch who just like sits around and does drugs all day and that I have no value system or like I just had all these and I remember talking to my friend and she's like, Chelsea, I think you're smoking too much weed. Like your niece does not give a fuck about you. She is in her own world. She's 22 years old. It has nothing to do with you. And you are like, you're totally like not even thinking clearly. And it was so true because it's that's all ego. Like my niece isn't worried about my personality. She's worried about what's going on in her life. Um, so, it, and I just
I
imagine,
know.
with parenting, I remember thinking like, oh God, that must come into play all the times with parenting. Like
Yeah.
as kids, I remember what it was like being a kid. Like I didn't ever think about my parents' personal life or anything other than they belonged to me. Like they were in charge of me and they weren't doing a good enough job. And I didn't think like, is my mom happy? Does she have a life? Does she have enough friends? My parents' relationship healthy, or is my parents' relationship healthy? All those things, the framework
Totally.
of a child's brain or a young adult's brain versus an adult's brain is very different. So there's also that to consider. And that's
Yeah.
ego based as well, right?
Yeah, you never think of your parents as like an autonomous human being until you become like a grown up, until
Right.
you become like the age that they were when you were a kid, and you're like, oh shit, this is how old my parents were when I was in the third grade or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then like with the kids, with the ego and with your niece and the things that people say that trigger like that response in you, that you're like, wait a second, what is it wrong with me right now? Why am I so triggered by worrying about what a 22-year-old or like my 7-year-old thinks about this right now, or their behavior
Abs-
is pissing me off? Why am I so pissed off right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. And it's also interesting just to always play with like what your motivation is in any circumstance, right? Because usually it is ego based and ego driven. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to take, especially in my business, that's all it is, or that's all it can be if you let it be that way. So you have to really kind of dig deep and be like, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to be seen? Am I doing this to be heard? Am I doing this because I want to show off my body? What am I doing? And what's my motivation? And as long as you square all that away, then you have kind of a healthier boundary and understanding of your own, motivations for things and why you do
Yes.
things. So, yeah.
I can
Uh,
I cannot imagine what that must be like in your business to maintain like your strong sense of self throughout all of the bullshit that goes on in like Hollywood.
Yeah, well, that's why I remain very close with my family because
Yeah.
they are normal, and I spend a lot of time out of LA as often as I can. Ski season, I'm up in Whistler all the time. I
Yeah.
have a place up there, and my friends up there are not in the industry. They don't watch TV. They don't know who anybody is. That's really fun and refreshing for me. And I think because I don't have a family and because I don't have a husband, my identity for my entire adult life has been my career. Like that's how people know me. So I realized that when I quit Chelsea Lately or when I left Netflix, one of those shows I just had it with that being it felt so one dimensional. I'm like,
Yeah.
I have to cultivate other things in my life. This can't be the only thing that I'm defined by my career. I have to have relationships that are meaningful and experiences that have nothing to do with being on TV or being, in the public eye. So, once I squared that away, and that was pretty young, I realized that. Well, not young, but young in my career, probably like, in my early 30s, I was like, okay, this just can't be all there is. I have to make sure. And so that's an effort that I continually have to remind myself, like, okay, you could, some people in this industry don't like to take time away from being in front of people, and time away is the most important thing you can take, because without experiencing life, it's almost like, what does someone like me have to say? In order for me to do a new hour of stand up, I have to have experiences that I can, you know, take from.
Yeah.
And I can't just keep performing and keep performing. Like, I have to take some time, develop some new material, and then write a book or do a tour or, whatever I'm going to do.
Yeah, you've been doing all of this for a long time too, and you started like you came to fame as a pretty young woman. And so who were like was there anyone who kind of like was a a way paver for you, or somebody who like opened doors for you as a young woman or inspired you a lot?
Um, oh God, I mean, so many people. I don't know that I was ever modeling my career. I mean, Bill Cosby was a huge inspiration, and
Look what
look
happened.
where that landed. So, I mean, no, not in the sense that I was mimicking anyone's career, because I didn't even think I was going to do stand up. That was an accident as well, a
Wow.
happy accident, and it came from a really bad decision I had made, I ended up finding out how to do stand up, which ended up being the best decision I ever made, because it's led to all of my career paths and my talk shows and everything. So, uh, I don't even remember what the question was. I think
Uh,
I'm rambling. I
No,
don't
just like if
even.
you had people who were
Oh,
really
looked up
good
to.
to
Yeah.
you or you looked up to or that just
Yeah.
you
I no.
aspired towards.
Yeah, it wasn't that much. I mean, of course, there are people I always look up to, like I worship Jane Fonda. I love, uh, people that stand for something, but I never modeled my career after that. I'm not strategic like that. Like, I don't
Hmm.
sit down and say, okay, I have a 5-year plan. I just kind of go where the mood takes me. Sometimes I'm in the mood to do stand up. I took a 6-year break from stand up because I didn't feel like I had anything important to say. And now I'm on my third tour in 3 years because I'm so into it right now.
Yeah.
I took a break from writing books. But now I just signed another book deal. So I'm writing another book. And I don't know. I find out, like, things kind of come my way when it's the right time. And I just try not to take myself too seriously, in the
Hmm.
sense that, like, okay, I'm not rigid. I don't have to be doing this in this amount of time or whatever. Like, I just don't look at things like that. I think that it's better to be a little bit more comfortable not knowing where everything is headed, and having your own self-confidence, and knowing that you're going to be fine whichever direction you take. It's just about, sometimes you have to decide which direction you want to go in, and there is no right or wrong answer. The right answer is the answer you choose.
Yeah, but I find a lot of comfort in what you're saying about not having like a 5-year plan or everything plotted out in life and how you want this to work out and that. Because first of all, that's fucking silly because we really can't plan anything anyway.
Yeah.
Life will take its turns. But just like that keeps you relevant too, I think, because you just do what is inspiring you at the time in the moment, and you can just, build off of what's now, which is kind of way more exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, and it's nice to have a good attitude about everything. If you have, I mean, I had many years of just flying everything by the seat of my pants. I didn't really, I wasn't grounded. And, when I went to therapy when I was 40, it had a huge impact on me, in the sense of, okay, like, now the gift of self-awareness, the gift of understanding that a good attitude and a positive attitude breeds so much goodness, and
Mm.
negativity, getting rid of negativity in your life is so important, because the minute you choose to be more positive and to be a brighter outlook, and you kind of dismiss the, like, I'm not going to sit around and gossip about my friends
Right.
anymore. I did that when I was in my 20s and 30s, and I stopped it. My energy shifted. I realized that's reducing myself, and it's not a respectable way to be. And as soon as you have that attitude towards life, everything just starts coming your way in a different way. The positivity starts, when you're positive, that's what you attract. When you're negative, that's what you attract. And I knew that because I had heard it and I had read it, but I hadn't lived it. And now I live that way, and it feels, even when there's something stressful going on, I just am not reactive in that way anymore. I'm just like,
Hmm.
okay, well, that didn't work out. Let's go over here. Or, I don't get mad. I don't scream. I don't yell. I don't lose my shit
Hmm.
like I did before. So that also has been a great life lesson for me in terms of staying the course. Like, not everything works out the way that you want it to, but it's your reaction that is the most important thing to when things don't work out.
Yeah, totally. It's really the only thing that we have control over in life. And then it does, though, take so much more strength to say, like, not let the negative thoughts, feelings, whatever infiltrate, because it's easy to let that take over. And it's harder to almost be focused on positive at sometimes if that's, like people will make one negative comment on the internet or something, and that'll be the thing that sticks with you out of thousands of beautiful things that somebody has said. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
that's for sure. That happens a lot. Yes.
yeah, you just have to blah, 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 blah. Well, I have just one last question for you before you go, because have been so generous with your time and I'm so appreciative. But on Instagram, I close out a lot of the shit that I say with get yourself a snack, which is basically like, just forget it. Don't worry about the other stuff. But also, what is your favorite snack?
I would honestly would have to say a joint is my favorite snack. I
Fav-
like these little dog walker joints that I have. And yes, I'm about to go meet my friend for lunch. And I was just thinking about what kind of joint I was going to smoke on my way over.
Well,
So
then
that's my
you're
snack.
gonna have something delicious after that. That makes everything better after that, right?
I would say pomegranates are my favorite thing to snack on,
Oh
though. I
my
love
God, it's
pomegranate
so
seeds.
healthy.
They're so sugary and they're
No,
so delicious, though. Just
yeah,
spoonfuls of pomegranate seeds. I love
a
that.
little crunch.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
not a real junk food person. Only if I'm like, if I've lost all will to live and I'm exhausted, then I'll eat potato chips and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm 48, so I have to have my shit together. You know what I
Man,
mean?
you do have your
Especially
shit together.
if I want to drink and smoke, liberally, then I have to keep my shit together. So that's what I do.
Yeah, you look great.
Oh,
Those
thanks.
bikinis down the mountain, you have such a set of balls on you, and you don't need to because you look so awesome anyway. But I thank you for being here. I really appreciate you and the generosity that you've shown me, and just who you are, and showing up every day and working so much, creating content, doing tours. And I would love to help do my little part in help promoting your new dates. And I hope I get to see
Oh,
you. I
you're
hope
so
if you're coming to
sweet,
New York, I'll
Caitlin.
come to your show.
Yeah, is that where you are, New York?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'll be announcing New York tomorrow. So we can meet in person. You'll have to come
Yes.
backstage and say hello.
Amazing. I would love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, go have a great lunch with your friend. Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, thanks, Caitlin. What a pleasure.
Bye, Chelsea.
Bye.